I'm doing this thing where I'm going to platinum every game in the Like a Dragon series, and eventually every game in Sega's entire catalog. And Yakuza Kiwami 2 is next up on the list. Apparently it's only a 6 out of 10 on the difficulty scale, but like with the first Kiwami, I'll have to play through the entire game at least twice. Once on any difficulty between easy and hard, and then an additional playthrough on New Game Plus, where I'll have to complete the game again on Legend difficulty. Which sounds pretty intimidating, but that pales in comparison to the giant completion list in the game, where I'll need to tick off every item before I can join the 2.5% of gamers who have the illustrious platinum trophy. But before I can start crying about how Mahjong is the worst game ever created, there are 16 story chapters to get through first. And since this is a JRPG, the story can be quite dense, so I'll just give you a quick rundown. The main character, Kiryu Kazuma, must take the reins of the Tojo clan after the 5th chairman gets assassinated by members of the rival clan in the Omi Alliance. The 5th chairman actually wanted to broker a peace treaty between the two organizations, which surprisingly the rival Omi leader wants to accept, but his son Ryuji isn't happy with this decision and orchestrates a coup in order to take control of the Omi from his father, with the greater goal of completely wiping out the Tojo clan. This event ends up sparking a war between the Tojo and the Omi. Long story short, some people get hurt, some get betrayed, some perish, others fall in love, and some subscribe to the channel. But my reward for finishing the story was 16 trophies to kick off the hunt for the platinum. There were also a lot of things in the game to distract me from the story, but ultimately those distractions paid off because it did net me a few additional trophies, like just getting started, which is for completing 10 items on the completion list. Most of the trophy grinding in Kiwami 2 deals with the completion list, and we'll be coming back to it a lot during this hunt. Another trophy I got while playing through the story was Shine Shine 4 Shine for joining Club 4 Shine. Try to say that 5 times fast. This trophy was unmissable as the game forced me to complete the mission tied to it, but it's not directly related to the story and more so serves as a way of introducing the Cabaret Club Grand Prix minigame, in which Kiryu gets to act as the manager of the club and help the owner become the #1 cabaret destination in the city and ultimately bring home the championship. I know it sounds crazy, but this is one of the tamer things that happened in the Like a Dragon series. There's another trophy similar to this that I unlocked pretty soon afterwards, but on the way to the area where I would eventually unlock that trophy, I got into a scuffle and ended up breaking the windows of this food spot and unlocked Repeat Offender for destroying an establishment 3 times. Eventually, I was able to make it to the construction site where I unlocked the My Boss is Crazy trophy, which is the other unmissable but non-story related trophy. This also unlocks the Clan Creator minigame, where I'll get the honor of helping Majima protect his construction company from the various moguls in town who want to take over the Kamurocho Hills development project. Some of the last trophies I unlocked before rolling the credits were a few stat-based ones for increasing my health and defense, along with knocking off a few more items on the completion list. But with all that out of the way, it was time for Premium Adventure Mode, where I'm able to clean up the rest of the trophies before I take on the story again, but on the hardest difficulty the game has to offer. This post-game mode includes tackling the rest of the completion list, which I only made 42% progress on before beating the story. So this scary completion list I've been mentioning in the video so far is made up of 303 items that are separated into 6 different categories. There's Adventure, which is centered around the exploration of the different cities and interactions with other characters. Battle, which tasks me with utilizing different fighting styles and weapons while I'm out brawling in the street. Sub-stories, which is what the game calls side quests. Mini games, which are more scaled down activities I can participate in around the city, like arcade games and gambling. And finally, Clan Creator and Cabaret Club Grand Prix, which are more complex than normal minigames, so they get their own categories. As you can probably tell, this is a tedious grind because of the sheer amount of stuff the game throws at you, and it's made worse by the fact that everything in the game is a distraction. Like, I thought I was prepared to blast through all the sub-stories, but then I saw these shiny keys on the ground, and I had to go out to find more. But then I remember this game has gambling, and I'm not about to pass that up. It's pretty much like that one scene in Family Guy where James Wood is like picking up candy and whatnot. But the first trophy post-story that I settled on unlocking was a taste for Japan, for eating at all the restaurants in Kamurocho and in Sotenbori. While I was at it, I went ahead and ordered every item on every menu to satisfy some objectives on the completion list. It's insane how much food Kiryu can put away. And because I had food on the brain, I went ahead and hit up all the vending machines in town to try every drink, which earned me another trophy called Opening Up a Can, which again knocks some items off the completion list. For the sake of brevity, just know like 90% of the trophies in this game are also completion list requirements, so it's safe to assume that when I unlock a trophy, I'm also crossing something off that massive list. Anyway, I then wanted to work on some of the minigame based trophies, and I decided to start with watching all the different films in the game, which are interesting. So interesting, in fact, that I get to have my own special room for the viewing experience, if you catch my drift. But my fun was cut short because the last one I needed to watch was located in one of the lockers in town. So I was forced to find the key for that locker first to get that particular tape. But since I was already collecting one key, I thought I might as well just run around Kamurocho and Sotenbori to collect them all, which earned me the Coin Locker Conqueror trophy. There are also some pretty helpful items in those lockers that will help out with the completion list later on, so it wasn't an entire waste of time. I was then able to go back to the theater and watch the last video I needed for the movie buff trophy. This will end up becoming a running theme for this hunt, where I'll need to unlock a different trophy before I can unlock the one I'm actually working on. But keeping up with the same theme of working on the minigames, I wanted to start knocking out the Cabaret Club Grand Prix and Crater Club completion list items. So I took a cab to Sotenbori and started playing Matchmaker for a few hours, which ended up netting me a trophy called Party Like It's 1988 for acquiring 10 million yen. And I also ended up winning the first league championship, which means I can move on to the Paradise League and continue making a name for myself as a Cabaret Club manager. I then realized that all this running around so far has given me a bunch of experience, so I went ahead and maxed out the rest of my base stats and added 2 more trophies under my belt. I then took a break from the Cabaret Club after conquering the next 2 leagues and put the Billionaires League on hold for a moment to go work on the Clan Creator minigame. I did a few missions and eventually needed more manpower, so I recruited more workers, which eventually unlocked me a trophy for recruiting 50 total workers. But after getting bored of the monotonous tactic-based fighting, I went back to Club Forshine to finish up the storyline and unlock Legends of the Nightlife, which means my days of playing Matchmaker were finally over. While I was here, I went ahead and went on a date with all the main hostesses that joined Forshine after you beat their club during the storyline, which netted me the Be True to Yourself trophy. I decided that I should go back to the Clan Creator so that I could have both major minigames completed for the sake of the completion list, and the trophies obviously. So I went back to the Kamurocho Hills construction site and defeated the last of the moguls. I noticed that after I completed the storyline that there was one trophy left associated with the minigame, and that was to possess over 200,000 points in Clan Creator. This trophy was tough. After doing a few missions and not getting anywhere close to the 200,000 point goal, I went ahead and cheesed it by using a worker that multiplies the gold they pick up and chose a mission where there's gold coming out of everyone's ears. It was super simple doing it this way, and I would have gotten it sooner if I actually read everyone's abilities instead of just sticking with my main crew who are all offense-based fighters. But I still got the trophy in the end, so it's whatever. Since I missed that trophy for the Clan Creator, I went ahead and double-checked the Cabaret Club to make sure I wasn't missing out on any there, and sure enough, I missed the trophy for registering 30 total hostesses. So I sent out a few more flyers and got the trophy and Eye for Talent. On the way back to the club, I also unlocked a super simple trophy for taking 10 photos on Kiryu's phone, which I somehow missed. As you can tell, I didn't go about this platinum hunt in the most efficient way based on how much backtracking I did or just super easy trophies I ignored for no reason. But with 2 out of the 6 categories on the completion list marked off, I decided to fight the rest of the street bosses in the game, which I was only missing a few at this point because of all the throwing hands I've been doing thus far. This trophy is a little annoying because you have to defeat specific types of enemies for each unique street boss to show up, so it was a lot of just running around until I found those specific groups. But after running a few laps around town, I got the email that the final street boss was waiting for me and gave him the business, which unlocked me the Champion of the City trophy. The next one on the list was another super simple trophy that I just ignored for a while, called For the Children, which I unlocked for donating 1 million yen to the Sunflower Orphanage. Multiple characters in the game, including Kiryu, have a connection to the orphanage, so it didn't feel like a total waste of money. Still a scam though. I then wanted to finish up the battle portion of the completion list, so I started running around town using various weapons and gear to satisfy my thirst for performing those ridiculous heat actions. During all that fighting, I noticed that there was one trophy that wasn't popping, which involved me defeating 100 enemies using a weapon. And with the amount of fighting and bicycles I was using to clear out those encounters, there was no way I should have been missing that trophy. Well, it turns out the guide says that any weapon you can pick up count towards the trophy, but this was incorrect. Progress is only made towards this trophy when you use a weapon from your inventory. So I just had to do a little more fighting and eventually the Weapon Master trophy popped. But my thirst for fighting wasn't satisfied just yet, so I went to the underground coliseum in Purgatory to win all the tournaments. Unfortunately, I was hit with a roadblock because the last tournament in the coliseum isn't unlocked until every sub-story is completed. But by this point, I only had 10 left, so it wasn't that big of a deal. So I just switched my target to unlocking that trophy instead. However, after bringing that number down to 4 sub-stories, I was hit with another roadblock. Turns out those 4 sub-stories won't unlock until after all the bouncer missions are completed. These missions see Kiryu take on these bite-sized fighting sequences in which he protects Club Debola. So I switched my target again to the bouncer mission trophy. Excluding the overall grind for the completion list, this is the grindiest trophy in the entire game. There are only 26 unique missions to complete, but each one must be beaten 3 times on each difficulty associated with the bouncer missions, which means there's actually 78 total missions. None of them are really challenging, except for the last one where I had to fight 3 elite level enemies plus a whole slew of their minions. This last mission took me a good hour to beat, but I eventually unlocked the trophy You're Not Welcome for completing all the bouncer missions. I was then able to go back and complete those last 4 sub-stories, which saw me having another run-in with those challenging enemies from the last bouncer mission, but this time without their minions, so it was very easy. Also, the very last sub-story has its own trophy because it involves defeating the secret boss in the game, so I actually knocked out 2 birds with 1 stone. I was actually shocked with how easy the secret boss is in this game compared to the first Kiwami, because I remember when I was working on that platinum, I read a guide somewhere that mentioned how the first Kiwami game has the easiest secret boss fight, but in my opinion, Kiwami 2's is 100 times easier. So easy in fact, I was able to do it on my first attempt, which is like 99 less attempts than the last bouncer mission took. But after that wild goose chase was over, I was finally able to return to my original goal of winning all the coliseum tournaments. So I went back to Purgatory and wiped the floor with the so-called contenders, and finally unlocked the trophy half performance, half raw power. By this point, I could taste the platinum trophy. There were only a few more missions left on the completion list, which were minigame based and adventure based. These last few items are also required for learning every normal skill, battle skill, and heat action, which each has their own trophy tied to it. So I went ahead and brought Haruka out of hiding and completed all her requests, which were very simple this time around. It was mainly go to this place and buy this thing, and then go to that place and buy that thing, just like in the first Kiwami, but there was no funny business like winning against the hardest CPU in billiards this time around. I also finished up the batting cages and the golf minigame so that I was able to learn the rest of Kiryu's skills and received 5 trophies for my hard work. This meant that there was only one more minigame that stood between me and that completion list trophy, and that was Mahjong. I was terrified of this portion of the completion list because it took me 30 hours in the first Kiwami game to satisfy the Mahjong requirements. But this time around, it was easier. Notice I said easier and not easy though. Mahjong still sucks, and I hate that I have to play this stupid minigame for a platinum trophy. That being said, it felt more like a grind this time instead of an unfair list item. I only needed to go out 30 times with either Ron or Sumo instead of going out 5 times with Ipatsu. If none of that makes sense to you, don't worry, because it doesn't make sense to me either. But trust me, it's just easier in this game. But after slapping down that last tile, I finally 100%ed the completion list and unlocked the all done trophy. And I was so happy that I could have cried. Now, before I could start the playthrough on Legend difficulty, I still needed to complete the Majima Saga, which are some of the additional chapters in Kiwami 2 that unlock after you beat the main story, in which you get to play as Kiryu's rival slash friend slash possible lover, Goro Majima. I could have done this right after clearing the story, but I felt like it would have been a nice breath of fresh air to beat it after cleaning up the completion log in Premium Adventure, so I decided to wait till now to do it. There are only 3 chapters to the saga that are fairly short, and they're mainly just fan service for those who played Yakuza 0, as they tie up some loose ends with Majima and his old flame. And after completing the Majima Saga, I immediately dove headfirst into the Legend playthrough. This game mode is only accessible the first time around as New Game Plus, so everything that I earned during Premium Adventure carries over, which means I have my bottomless clip pistol and my super strong lightsaber that I can use to carry me throughout the playthrough, so it was a cakewalk. I just switched between the 2 weapons and skipped every cutscene this time around, and after only a couple hours, I cleared the second playthrough and earned the Dragon of Legend trophy, but more importantly, I unlocked the Platinum trophy. It took me 80 hours to achieve all 59 trophies for this game, which is on par with the estimated time stated on the guide. So now I'm 2 games down and have spent 200 total hours obtaining 114 trophies in the Like a Dragon series, and there's still a long way to go. So be sure to like and subscribe if you want to see me finish the rest of the series.